From Washington, D.C. studios, this is the best of Muslim news on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Hena Zuberi. On behalf of Muslim Network News, I wish you all a very happy and blessed second day of Eid al-Fitr. Let's watch the best of our news reports.
India is crushing Muslims, literally bulldozing their homes and shops. Without a case and without trial, simply bulldozing because they can. Attacks on mosques and churches happen often in Gandhi's India today. However, demolishing houses and shops is a new method to the madness called Hindutva, or India for Hindus only ideology. It all started this Ramadan. It happened first in Madhya Pradesh. RSS BJP rules this Indian state. They bulldozed 16 houses and 29 shops. What was their crime? These Muslims resisted attacks on their mosques by the Hindu militia a day earlier on April 10th, 2022. The very next day, on April 11th, the victims' houses and shops were gone. RSS militia attacks. The BJP and police then punish the victims. That is the method in the madness. Was there any case or any judicial process? None. The RSS BJP chief minister simply tweeted about it. He was the chief prosecutor, chief judge, and chief demolisher. He was swift. Within 24 hours, the livelihood of these Muslims was gone. As the crowd shouted, Jai Shri Ram. The media loved it. They cheered the demolition. Reporters Without Borders rates Indian media below Afghanistan and Burma. Intoxicated by the new method to the madness, they did it again. This time, the Hindutva fascists chose the Indian capital, Delhi. The police here are normally controlled by the federal government of Modi. On April 16, 2022, militia attacked a mosque in Jahangirpuri neighborhood of Delhi. The Bajrang Dal mobs showed up armed with swords, tridents, and guns. Muslim worshippers resisted the attacks on their mosque. Within 3 days, on Tuesday, April 19th, a demolition drive targeting Muslims was launched on the demands of the BJP's Delhi president, Adesh Gupta. Muslims were served a midnight notice. They approached the Supreme Court. It ordered to stop the demolitions. But BJP-ruled India hardly cares for the courts. Poor people who live there collecting and selling scraps lost all their belongings. Their 20 shops were bulldozed into dust this holy month of Ramadan. This is just a small window into Ramadan in India. Every day of Ramadan saw new attacks on Muslims, burning their properties, demolishing their homes, and arresting the victims. It all starts with armed mobs calling for attacks on Muslims and their mosques. And when Muslims resist, they end up losing their houses and shops. Should Indian Muslims stop resisting? Should they let their mosques, their homes, and their lives be attacked? Can they trust Indian police, the RSS militia, and the BJP government to protect them? This is Saliha Farouk reporting for Muslim Network TV from its Toronto studios. There is a mosque in India that was built while the Prophet Muhammad was still alive. God's peace and blessings be upon the Prophet. This oldest mosque in India is about to be reopened. Cheraman Juma Mosque was built in 629 CE. That is 3 years before the Prophet left this world. It is the oldest mosque in India, situated in Kerala. Kerala at the time was an independent kingdom. Kerala was an international trade center connected with Arabia. Arabs used to call it Malay, later Malabar. The story of this mosque is connected with its Hindu king, Cheraman Perumal Rama. The king learned Islam from the Muslim traders. He became Muslim and went to meet the Prophet. Here is Imam Adam Kelwick, next to his gravesite in Oman.
He became one of the companions of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who sat with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who talked with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who ate with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we have very little reference to this story in the Sahih Ahadith. However, there is one mention mentioned by Al-Bukhari, which this Indian king visits Al-Medina and he gifts the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam some pickled ginger, which is one of the specialities even till this day of the people of Kerala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took it and he ate from it and he gave it and shared it with the rest of his companions.
While returning from his trip back to India, he passed away in Salallah, Oman. May Allah be pleased with him. This is his grave. The rest of the party continued their journey back to Kerala with his letters. It is said among them was Malik bin Dinar. May Allah be pleased with him. He built this mosque with the help of other Muslims. It was the first mosque of Kerala and one of the oldest mosques in the world. The mosque has recently gone through renovation and expansion, and it is now ready to reopen. The upper portion of the masjid will be open for tourists. The underground hall will be used exclusively for prayer. The mosque can accommodate 5,000 people in the prayer hall. Besides the old structure, an Islamic Heritage Museum is also on site. May Allah accept the efforts of all who for 1,400 years have kept this masjid going. The services of Muslims often do not get much recognition. An American who led the funding of the vaccine development was a Muslim, Maenza Slawi. The Turkish-German husband and wife team who invented the first vaccine were Muslims, Özlem Türeci and Uğur Şahin. The professor Dr. Ali Muqdad, whose difficult job it is to project pandemic statistics, is a Muslim. They are in the media, but hardly anyone has mentioned their faith. But as soon as some criminal does something who is a Muslim, the media rushes to mention that. Not for Christian criminals, not for Jewish criminals, but for sure the faith will be mentioned if the criminal is a Muslim. Here is a report which no media bother to cover. Muslims are dying daily trying to save lives. Yes, dying to save lives. In the United Kingdom, over 50% of the doctors who died saving lives during the first wave of COVID-19 were Muslims. The first 4 physicians who died were Muslims. Here is Dr. Habib Zaidi. This is Dr. Adil Al-Tayyar. His name is Dr. Amjad Al-Hawrani. Dr. Elfu Saadu also left the world saving lives. God has told us that if anyone has saved a life, it would have been as if he saved the whole of humanity. But these heroes are not celebrated. Instead of honoring their sacrifices, Muslim physicians are actually bullied. A report by Muslim Doctor Association in the UK says that Muslims are more likely to be harassed at work. They are more likely to face disciplinary sanctions at work. They are less likely to progress in their careers. While Muslim physicians serve day and night, they are underrepresented in positions of leadership in the National Health Services, known as the NHS in the UK. Approximately 10% of the medical workforce is Muslim, but the proportion of Muslim doctors who have died is 50%. If you're like me on Zoom all day long, talking to your loved ones or doing office meetings, then we need to thank Nasser Ahmed for it. Nasser Ahmed is a Muslim American professor in New Mexico. It is his algorithm that enables us to do live video chat through Zoom, Google Meets, Cisco, or any other systems. He devoted years of researching and perfecting his algorithm. He particularly worked on the irreversible compression algorithm. Due to that, we are able to reduce the data size of large files and upload them. But wait, what is an algorithm? An algorithm is a problem-solving mechanism with a set of rules, particularly by a computer. This program you are watching right now, or that TikTok you have, or this picture that you are seeing on your screens, you are able to see it because of algorithms. Yes, algorithms. Algorithms have been used for almost 1200 years. Algorithm is actually a Latinized last name of Al-Khwarizmi. The full name of this great Muslim scholar is Muhammad bin Musa Khwarizmi. He was born in 700 AD in Khwarezm in Turkestan area around the current Uzbekistan. But he became the leading scholar of the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. The House of Wisdom, or as Muslims call it, Baytul Hikmah, was a powerhouse of knowledge and sciences in the golden era of Islamic civilization. This is where Al-Khwarizmi, a mathematician, astronomer, and geographer, invented the algorithms in 825 CE. Among the Europeans, the phrase Dixit Algorizmi, or Thus spoke Al-Khwarizmi, became an arguing point in mathematical disagreements to send the message that any words written by Al-Khwarizmi are final, true, and must be followed, not argued against. He was a great scholar. Algebra comes from his book Kitab al-Jabr wal-Muqabbala. It is considered to be the first book on algebra. Algorithms define our lives today. 1200 years after Al-Khwarizmi, another Muslim, 11,825 miles away from Baghdad, used algorithms to connect you and us. Nasser Ahmed was the first to conceive the discrete cosine transform DCT, which is a lossy compression of algorithm. The DCT is widely used for digital image compression. The image and video compression properties of the DCT is why you can see this video report on your screens today. Thank you, Professor Nasser Ahmed, and of course, thank you, Muhammad bin Musa Khwarizmi. This is Salaha Farouk for Muslim News.
Coming up next after the break is the best of our Muslim News in-depth analysis. So stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Malik Mujahid in Chicago. Just like you, I was moved by that Allahu Akbar lady. She stood her ground, fearful of none, for her hijab and for her education. Sisters and brothers, Indian Muslims are facing a genocide. India does not care for Muslim protesting, but it does care for the world opinion. Therefore, we must push the United Nations. The UN has a responsibility to protect. They must prevent genocide. Please sign this UN petition now. Get others to sign. It will help. Trust me, it will help. We need 1 million signatures, brothers and sisters. Please sign now.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
Uscirf is a bipartisan commission of the United States for religious freedom around the world. And it issues an annual report along with a whole lot of statements throughout the year. And we are thankful for they standing up for religious freedom around the world. Today, they have issued a report which declares several countries as countries of particular concern. This is their term about wherever the religious freedoms are problematic. This includes India, along with China, Russia, and many, many Muslim countries. We have today the chair and the commissioner of the United States Commission for International Religious Freedom, or Uscirf, Nadine Maenza. Welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you for your work. Do you continue to get quite a bit of criticism and heat when you issue these reports?
Yes, we do. It definitely is getting some attention, but we are going to speak the truth and document the conditions that we see and issue those reports regardless.
Share with us, is religious freedom around the world is improving or worsening situation from your perspective?
I think overall it's worsening, but we have seen some bright spots in the last several years. And in talking to some of my colleagues that have worked at the Commission for many years, they remind us that while our reports sometimes could be very discouraging, we have seen some countries like Uzbekistan make stunning progress in 4 years, Kazakhstan making progress. We took Bahrain off our list last year, and we no longer cover them. So we are seeing some bright spots, but we're also seeing deterioration in many of the countries we cover. So it's disconcerting for sure.
Well, in this world, good news is rare to come by. So let's do a little more on good news. So you're saying Uzbekistan, that's very relevant for me because last night an iftar dinner, I was with 500 Uzbek Muslims who are building their first mosque in Chicago. So tell me what progress Uzbekistan is making.
Right. So this year, our report actually was tough on Uzbekistan. Because in the course of the last 4 years, they've made this stunning progress, where they've changed some of the religion laws, where they've let thousands of religious prisoners free. But the last year, and we do reports from January to December, and in the last year, they didn't make that kind of progress. They didn't register any non-Muslim houses of worship. They continued to keep over 2,000 religious prisoners in prison, and they actually updated their religion law. And they did make some positive changes, like changing from a limit of needing 500 or 100 people down to 50 to register a place of worship. But most of the problematic parts of their religion law weren't changed. They don't allow people to meet outside the registered location for religious services. They outlaw any missionary activity. So we're hoping, it's some of this, we understand that it isn't always a straight line forward. So even though we have seen some of these problems in the last 12 months, it doesn't take away from the fact that it's been stunning changes in some of the conditions they've had where people are practicing their faith. And so we try to put in context that still, it doesn't take away from the previous years of progress, because at a year where they kind of stalled. We're hopeful that this next year they're going to make some great progress. But the thing that's most stunning about it is they continue to engage with us. We just visited Uzbekistan, just got back 2 weeks ago. And even though they know we're going to write a report that isn't going to be completely positive, they continue to engage with us and continue to invite us to attend and meet with former religious prisoners and so forth, which really shows the authenticity of their desire. It's easy for government to say, oh, we want to change or we are changing, but then they don't do the hard work. And Uzbekistan's doing the hard work. And we're also seeing Kazakhstan with a roadmap where they're trying to move forward. Again, it's struggling to get some of these laws changed and to allow people to practice their faith outside of locations that are approved, and give a little bit more freedom to their religious communities. But they're working towards that. They've had honest and open dialogues with Uscirf on it. And so I'm encouraged that, again, we're going to continue to see positive change in Kazakhstan as well.
Well, Nadine, I always respect people who are open for dialogue, at least, because when Uscirf declared last year India, a country of particular concern, they called Uscirf as an institution of a particular concern. We will get back to it, but let's dwell on it. What other countries are willing to engage in conversation?
Yeah, there's quite a few countries that have. Egypt, for one, and we visited and had conversations. Azerbaijan has engaged with us. We have visited the embassy and visited the country as well. So we find a lot of the countries we cover are allow us to come and do meetings. We even visited Burma and met with the Burmese government. Now, this was 2 years ago when it was a combination civil and military government at the time, not since, of course, the coup. But it just shows you that there are countries that are open to having us come, even if they aren't engaging directly in changes. Like, for instance, Burma never was going back and forth with Uscirf in terms of following any of our recommendations. But they did allow us to come. They did meet with us and gave us a little bit more insight into the government. So it's a different level of engagement on some of these different countries. But we're willing to come and really start the conversation and then see how that develops.
Now, India, this is the third year you're recommending them to be declared a country of particular concern, as well as sanctions on people. In America, when churches or mosques are attacked, our government goes after those people who are attacking them. And we have a due process of law punishing them. In India, since the beginning of the month of Ramadan, which we are going through, there have been attacks on mosques and Muslims who have been standing guard to the mosque because police is not protecting them. they actually have demolished houses and shops of those people and threatening their livelihood. So what has been your finding on India?
Yeah, we have definitely seen conditions worsen in 2021. We've seen Indian government continue to promote and enforce policies that promote a Hindu nationalist agenda and negatively impact all sorts of religious minority communities. And as you said, what we've seen is a combination of both the government engaging in religious freedom violations or tolerating religious freedom violations. And in order to meet the definition of being a country of particular concern, or a CPC, the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998 indicates that it must meet this threshold of systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations. And so we see India both engaging in and them allowing and tolerating those kind of crimes, as you mentioned, with this mob violence, and oftentimes encouraging it. That is a severe religious freedom violation, and the U.S. government should acknowledge that, and there should be a consequence for that behavior internationally.
Why do you think do you think a State Department is listening to you? Because this is the third year Uscirf has issued this report. In terms of other countries, they accept it. But when it comes to India, they remain silent. Are you seeing any progress?
We definitely have met with the State Department and shared our concerns. And India is one of those countries that we would expect most of the dialogue in the work the U.S. government would be doing with them would be private. So our hope is that the U.S. government is engaging directly with the Indian government at the highest levels. But in terms of working together and bilateral work, we also hope that there is some consequences for the Indian government for this behavior, that the U.S. government uses different tools it has to incentivize the Indian government to make changes in the laws and to change the way that they're treating those perpetrators of these crimes.
Well, Secretary of State recently, speaking alongside in a press conference with the Indian counterpart, mentioned that in some part of the government, Indian government and police, in terms of human rights violation, that seems to be first time publicly Secretary of State has said. So that seems to be needle is moving little bit, but tell me about the engagement. I'm about dialogue and engagement. You mentioned some countries are being engaged in conversation with Uscirf. Is India engaged in conversation?
We are not dialoguing with the Indian embassy or with the Indian government at this point in time. We would welcome the opportunity, and we'd be glad to do that privately even, and having these conversations. But currently, we're not dialoguing. We're thankful that the U.S. government is having these conversations. We're confident that they are coming up. As you heard, they even announced that they were talking about human rights, which is something we probably haven't seen before from the U.S. government. But we so far have not been able to, although we would welcome that.
But Uscirf is a part of the U.S. government. How come a government is not listening to another part of the government?
Well, we feel like the U.S. government is listening to us. It's hard to know exactly what they're following, because we know some of this dialogue is private.
Nadine, I know it's a difficult work giving an opinion about different countries, about the level of religious freedom and calling for sanctions and things of this nature. But India is taking very personally. I mean, along with your report, they have issued a 129-page report in which, I'm honored to be in this center. And around me, they have placed a lot of people, including Honorable yourself. I don't know what am I deserving to get that, but it seems like anyone who speaks for religious freedom and or freedom in general seems to be the bad guy in the eyes of the Indian government. So, are you intimidated by these type of reports?
I am not. I'm disappointed. The one map you mentioned connects me with all these people. Most of them I don't know who they are. Some people I've met once or twice, but making these assumptions that there's this deep plot against India, there is not. I mean, we stand with the people of India to have the right to practice their faith freely, to be able to identify as a religious community openly without fear of violence. And so our critique of India and of the laws is in no way mean-spirited and is not in any sort of conjunction with any other organizations that we've been associated with. We don't even meet with most of them. We do interviews like this from time to time, but these recommendations we made are because that's the truth of what's happening right now in India. And we'd love nothing better than for those conditions to change, for us to be able to make other recommendations, for us to say things are better, that these crimes aren't happening, this violence isn't happening. And we'd love nothing more than to move India back off the list and not talk about these conditions any longer. But currently, all the intimidation in the world isn't going to change the fact that right now conditions are deteriorating in India, and it's not helpful if we want India to be stable, to be secure, to be peaceful, and to be a good ally. The conditions are harmful economically. So there's so many different reasons why it's better for the people of India if the government opens up religious freedom conditions again and lets people have that freedom to practice their faith openly.
Well, I also do not know most of those people, but I do recognize some human rights activist in India who was put in there, and one of them, Harsh Mandar, his house and his offices were actually raided by the Indian government. And he used to be a civil servant of the Indian government, and he resigned because of exactly the violation of human rights. And so I do know some of those people, and it's just honored to be just connected with you.
I'm honored to be connected with you.
Thank you so much for your work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me today and for covering this important story and for all the work you do. And happy Ramadan to you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum, good night, and have a joyful Eid.